Hey y'all, and welcome to my channel. If you're like me, you probably have stacks of t-shirts. So here are two ways that you can refresh some shirts. This is my inspiration photo for the first one I'm going to do. I love the way it looked and the bright colorfulness of it. And you can do this with a t-shirt, tank top, button down, doesn't matter. I'm starting with this white sleeveless shirt, and then I'm going to use some tulle. Now you can either get tulle like this one that's on a roll, or you can buy tulle like quarter yard of tulle. I'm using some of these neon colors, and I cut squares that were 4 inches tall by 3 inches wide, and I cut 3 squares in each color. You'll also need matching thread. The reason I cut 3 of each color is because the tulle is so thin. If you only use like one piece of the tulle, you really can't see it. So I'm just going to treat all 3 as if it was one piece. Then I turn over 1 inch on the top edge. So essentially then you're left with a square that's 3 by 3. And I'm going to do this on each one, and the tulle kind of sticks together, so it's not hard to kind of manipulate all 3 as one. So once I have it turned over, I'm just going to sew in matching thread, just sew that down. And that is the top of my pocket. So here I've done each one. I'm using purple and yellow, lime green, and hot pink. So then you need to decide kind of which order you're going to put the pockets on. Tulle does not unravel, so you can skip this step if you want. You don't have to turn under the raw edges. I turned them under about 1/4 of an inch just to give a little bit more of a finished look. But again, you don't have to do that. You can just sew them down. So you're going to start with the color that you want on the bottom. And again, if you don't necessarily have to sew this. You could do this by hand. You could use fabric glue if you wanted. So here you see I have all my squares. I've got the 1/4 inch all the way around, and I'm starting with my bottom square, which is the yellow, and I'm just going to pin that to the shirt. Now I do have a board inside my shirt, and that just kind of ensures that I don't pin to both layers. And this is I was kind of just laying it out as far as, the color order, how I wanted it. And then you're just going to sew around your pocket. Here's my yellow one that I've sewn around. And then you're going to sew around the next one. And you can see I've kind of overlapped it a little bit. So I'll sew around the edge of that one. And just make sure when you pin them, as I said, you don't pin through both layers. You're just pinning through the top. But you don't necessarily have to do this with tulle either. You could use, some really cute cotton fabric or different laces, anything like that. But you're just going to do the steps until you have them all sewn down like this. And this is how it turned out. It turned out really cute. I love wearing it. I've washed it, and it's held up. And, I really love the way it looked. Now for this one, I'm just going to use this gray t-shirt, and you just need some trim. You can use lace. You can use ribbon. I'm using this crocheted trim that I found at Hobby Lobby. And because it's a little on the thinner side, I'm actually going to do 2 rows of this. Again, that just depends on the look that you want to go with. If you have a wider lace, you may just want to use one layer. If it's a narrower trim or a ribbon, maybe 3 or 4 rows. That's up to you. Now, this turned out really fortunate that it actually fell right on, a line. But you're just going to basically just sew it on. I lined it up with the shoulder seam and then kind of just brought it straight down to the end of my sleeve. And fortunately, it pretty much fit perfectly. Again, you can hand sew this, you can glue this with some fabric glue, that's up to you. So I did one layer or one row towards the front of the shirt, lining it up with the shoulder seam down to the end of the sleeve, and then I did one layer lining it up that's towards the back of the shirt. And then I just used a little zigzag stitch and stitched it on. And again, this would be really cute, different color shirts with different colored trims or laces, really anything like that. You could even go down the side of the shirt, like your underarm, your side seam if you wanted to. You could do the same kind of thing with a button down, or I was going to say a tank, but a tank doesn't have sleeves, so you could do it elsewhere on a tank. But again, a really cool way to, give maybe a shirt that you've had forever some new life. Just make sure, when you're pinning it, that you're just pinning through your top layer, and, just use your matching thread. You can straight stitch, you can zigzag. That really just depends on the trim that you're using. As I said, I did get this trim at Hobby Lobby, but I believe Michael's also has a trim that's similar. So this is how it turned out when I got it all sewn on. This crocheted kind of look is so popular right now, and this is a way that you can kind of incorporate it into your clothes for not much money. So again, love the way this turned out. I've worn it, I've washed it, it's held up, and I hope this gives you guys some inspiration, and that you'll go refresh some items in your wardrobe. And happy sewing!